Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. So, excuse my camera being a bit wobbly. Today, as you've seen on my thumbnail, we are going to be drawing and painting a very cute little blue jay, and he's up in the top left corner of my screen. I've just got to get my camera to focus. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to start with a pencil drawing, which I always start at the sort of top. I've got to flip my photo. Hang on just a second. So I go to my picture. I've got to flip the image. Just bear with me. Go into there. Oh, hang on. I've got to flip it on my other screen. Just bear with me a second. I did this the other day. Or what I'll do is... Where's my thing? Just bear with me a second, peeps. Just turn that off. It's all good. Just got to bring another photo up for myself to work from. Like that. And then we're good. Okay. Done. Save to photos. Okay, now I can start my picture because I just had to flip my photo so it's in line with your photo. There we go. All good. All good. So, grab my photo. I'm going to erase that bit. And let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to start the top of his head. I always do all my measurements from the top of their head. So his head is about that wide, and his beak is sort of looking at us, so his beak's foreshortened, so it's about half that, because he's sort of looking towards us. So I'll make it a little bit. I can adjust and readjust as I need to, and I've got to make his head a bit taller because his head's a bit low, like that. It's a bit rounder, like that. Hello, Krabby. Welcome, welcome. How are you? I love your videos, by the way. Very, very sweet. Love dogs. Alright. So I've got to draw his little head going across to the back here. He's got a darker part. Hello, Anjali. How are you? How are you? How are you? Welcome. I've had a few days. I've been at work, so I haven't had a chance to make a video. So I thought today I was itching to get on and create a piece. And I've been practicing my drawing, so I thought I wanted to do some more birds. Oh, speak loudly. You can't hear? Okay, hang on. I'll turn my volume up a bit. Is that a bit better? There we go. I've changed my headphones, so it could be a bit different. Is that a bit better? Alright. So now I'm going to come down here. I'm just going to draw in the marking. So I'm looking at the picture the whole time, the reference. And I'm just going to mark in where I see changes in tone and colour. His belly comes down. I'm just trying to measure against his head to his belly. So his head and his 2 times. You have great talent. Thank you so much, Dale. So 1, 2 is his length of his body. But anyone can do it. It's just practice and learning to look at things and see them more clearly. Looking at all the little details. So his back's obviously as long as his front. He's got a slightly curved down to his back like that. I draw that feather in. And it's fun having the picture up for you guys to check too, because that way you can draw along if you want. See his bottom, he flattens out here. So it goes flat there. And his tail disappears off behind. There's a piece of wood. And I'm going to draw the wood in. So I will do that. So I won't do the detail on his wings yet. So how's everyone's day been today? Hope you've all had a good day. It's lunchtime here. I just came home from art class actually. I was at art class this morning. So that was good fun. He's got a feathery bit there, and then he's got quite long legs. So I've got them on too straight of an angle. So I've got to change the angle a little bit. And his legs are the same length as his head. So his head's that long, so his legs are that long. So I'll mark that. Looking great, thank you. Thank you. And then it goes down and around like that. I'll just draw them in roughly for now. I can add detail, a bit more sort of perspective as I go. Actually, that leg's got to be further back. I've got to move this leg back. So I've just realised that leg needs to be about here, and that leg needs to go back a bit more like that. But they're the same length, so I can actually use the drawing, what's left, the shadow of that drawing that I had, to help guide me. Whoops, there we go. And you can trace. I mean, people do trace. It's not something to be ashamed of. I like to draw things by hand. I like to practice my drawing technique. But it can help sometimes if you're not so confident with drawing to trace it, and at least you have a good base to get your details and your colours and everything else. And I like this picture because this piece of wood that he's sitting on has actually got a beautiful highlight on it, a gorgeous highlight. So I'm just going to draw that in like that. And then the other bit that's coming up next to it is a bit taller, and that actually hides even I2 artist, comic artist. Oh, that's fantastic! Very good, because I've only seen, I've seen the beagle, your beautiful beagle. I haven't seen. I need to. Do you have art on your channel at all? Do you have another channel for art? If not, you should. There cannot be too many artists on YouTube. You've got to have more artists. Okay, so I'm going to add some light here. You should consider it, Chubby. And then that comes down there. That disappears off there. Like that. So we're doing the fence posts in. And then there's another little one. I've got that on too much of an angle. That comes straight. I'm going to erase that because it's messy as anything. Get it a bit neater looking. Straighten. Like that. There we go. That's better. And then come down here. And that almost disappears off the page. And then there's a little one, which is just a little bit like that. There we go. Okay, so the fence sort of goes up, so it's disappearing off into the distance. So the perspective lines take it away from you, going in a downward motion. Okay, so that's all going to be a dark colour. I want to do the wing feathers because I love the detail on the wings. I'm trying to get better with my my feather details. Same exact. Wow, the artists are great always. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to pop more detail. These feathers coming down. These feathers come down lower there. And these have got those beautiful black stripes on them. They're bright blue with black stripes, which I thought would be fun, and the bottoms of them are white. So I'll mark in the bottoms of them like that. Then he's got a little cluster of feathers down here like that. And then I'm having a look at these feathers here. So then he's got more stripy feathers that come down like that. Then plain feathers, change direction a little bit. And then these under feathers, these ones sort of come in and go around onto his tail. his tail disappears off there. So I'm going to quickly erase. Let's get these are kneadable erasers. They are very handy because you can shape the end. So you can get into those spots that you want to erase just like that. So I'm going to mark that there. I'm going to come around. I'm going to do this. I'm just trying to decide. I'm going to do it with a fine micron. And I'm also going to probably use a little bit of Pitt pen, because I love Pitt pens and they've got beautiful colours in them. Okay, so I'm going to grab my Micron pens now. So I'm going to go with 005. So I've got a big pile of Micron pens, but my most popular ones that I use are .003, 005, 1 and 2 are probably the ones I use the most. So I'm going to go over this pencil drawing now because I'm happy with it, with my Micron pens. And I can still make fine adjustments if I need to. So I come down here. And I can get with the watercolour and also with the pen, that's why I like to use pen, I can get much more vibrant blues. I can get the softness of the watercolour, but I can also get some vibrance from the pen. Pen is wonderful for helping to lift if you want really bright brights. And I want this bird to have a beautiful bright blue. And you can see now I'm roughing up the outside of his feathers too. I'm not just having flat lines. Always jaggedy up your outlines, because that helps to make things look a bit more realistic. Alright, now he's got a little mark coming along the back. He's got the blue on the top of his head. I'm only going to pen in the black though. I'm not going to pen in the lighter blues, because I'll go over these with the black pen probably, or maybe a bit of purple, because I think it's probably got a fair bit of purple in it. So come up here, but jaggedy up these lines, coming down onto his chest, into the middle, like that. There we go. Now I'm going to come down under his belly, follow that all the way back around to his leg. His leg's there, that leg's completely in shadow, but you can see his belly's up here, and it goes off. He's got the feathery leg coming down here, and I can erase the pencil marks when I've finished going over it with the pen, which I may or may not do. We'll see how we go. I can draw his little claws. Excuse me. That. His little feet come down and around. I'll draw his little toenail coming down here. Okay, and then this leg, same thing. I'm going to take it back a fraction from the original drawing. Like I said, once you go in with pen, you can still alter it if you see things that need altering. And this reference picture I got from unsplash.com, which is a royalty-free reference site, photo reference site. So it's very, very handy to get references if you don't have pictures to use. And I haven't been out getting photographs lately, so I'm just using Unsplash for my reference photos. But I try to catch birds on slightly different angles. It just keeps it interesting rather than directly straight side on and things like that. Alright. So now I'm going to come down here and I am going to draw in these feathers. So they end with white pieces. Just going to go over the lines that I had, like that. He's got sort of thicker feathers coming down here, like that. Alright. He's got these are the white feathers. I haven't counted them. I'm just freehanding them in. So they might not be exactly the same, but it's a drawing. So I don't expect it to be exactly the same. I like it to be anatomically correct, but it's not going to be exactly the same as the photograph. Okay. Okay, so come around here, and I'm going to take bottom feathers there. There we go. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So now I'm going to draw this wood in, and I'm going to rough up the edges. I'm going to have it so it's not flat, because the wood isn't flat. The edges are rough. I don't want my lines to be perfectly straight. So I'm not doing them perfectly straight. I'll have little bajaggedy bits like that. Have it coming down there, and then that all disappears off into shadow. Same with this one. Have it come down here, make it a bit wider, take it down to that one, make it rough, like that. Not flat lines because the wood's not flat. There we go. And then I can do this one down here. And you can see the whole side of that one, and you notice I've just got one line down that side because that all disappears off and you can't see it. So same with this one. I can only just see the top of it, like that. There we go. So now, the beauty of these pens is they dry almost instantly. That's why I love them. Thank you, Grubby. Thank you, doll. So now that's pretty much sorted. I am going to go over the top with my eraser and erase all of my old pencil lines. And we're going to start with a little bit of watercolour. So I've pre-sprayed my watercolours that I've got, Senneliers and Schminkies. I might even get my core watercolours. Where are they? There's my core watercolours, because I love the vibrancy of core. And I'm going to open that up, if I can open it. There we go. Open my core watercolours because they've got beautiful vibrant colours in them. Let's give them a spray just to wet down the paint. And I am going to start with a small-ish brush, bit of cloth, got to get my hand towel. So I've got my size 4 silverback black velvet brush, and I'm going to start with some Cerulean Blue. I'm going to bring that over on my palette. You can just see that there. Exact look more than real better. Oh, thank you, Crubby. That's very sweet. That's very sweet. Okay. So I'm going to just put this anywhere that I see that she's got blue or he's got blue. I think the boy ones have got the blue. Just take that anywhere that I can see there's a blue. So come down the back. There's a little bit of mauve as well, which is really super pretty. And I like to see that. So there's a little bit of mauve in there. I'm going to leave little gaps of white as the white of the paper. Just little bits, because you can see the little tiny peaks of white at the tops of the feathers. So I'll try and leave the white of the paper as the white of the feather. So then I come down here, and you can see there's black lines. I'll add those in last. You go from light to dark. So yeah, add the darkest darks in last. So I'm just putting the first layer of blues on to get that colour in. Take that right down there and onto the top of the tail. There we go. So we've got the very, very first. There's a little bit of blue down here on the nape of his neck, on his chinny bit, like that. Okay. So now I can go a little bit stronger. So a little bit more water. A little bit less water, sorry. A little bit more pigment is what I meant to say. A little bit less water, more pigment for the strength to strengthen these colours. So I'm going to go over the top of that. Anywhere I want it stronger and more vibrant. So I start to build up. I can come up here a little bit and add a little bit in there like that, a little bit of feathery detail. These ones on top are darker. Thank you. Thank you, Krabby. Okay, so I come down here onto the tail. And then I'm going to go between these feathers and underneath, as in shadow, but it's a blue-grey under there, so I won't worry so much about that. I can darken up just here, because going into his chest is a very dark, almost, actually it is almost purple. Now that I'm looking at it, it is almost purple, and I can go over those pencil marks, the pen marks, and I'm going to use dioxazine purple for that. I've got a dioxazine purple here. It's a beautiful dark purple, so I'm going to stick that on my palette. You can see that just there in the corner of the screen. And I might even add a little bit of indigo to darken it up. Touch of indigo, that'll darken it up a fraction. And I'm going to take that anywhere that's darkest dark. I'll build this up in a couple of layers as well. Yeah, anywhere that I've marked in that I want dark. Complete output will be a great bang. Yeah. Okay, so I come down here, take it all the way down his chest, and spread that out. Right, come right down. And I can also add this purpley tone to the shadow areas on his body. And actually I'm going to add a bit more of that blue to that. I want that to be darker again. Need that to be a bit darker. There we go. That's a bit better. Want it to be darker through here. So that's with the indigo and a bit of brown to make that even darker under there. And I'll use that in his eye. Like that. And I'll go over the top of his eye. Once that dries back a little bit, I'll add his retina. Oh, his pupil, sorry, that is his retina. I'm also going to use this colour into these stripes on his feathers. So they go down like that. There's intermittent sort of dots of colour. I come down here to the bottoms of these feathers individually like that. And then that one under here is dark. So I'm going to mark that in like that. Alright. Now, so those are light, these are blue. I forgot these ones. Okay, so I've got to go back again into my light blue. So I'll clean my brush. Go back to my light blue and fill these ones in. Whoops, a bit more in there. It doesn't matter if they blend into those purpley ones, it's absolutely fine, just like that. Okay, and now I'll go back to my darks and I add these patterns in again. But I very rarely use black. I nearly always try and use a purple or a blue for my darkest darks, because it just makes the painting look alive a bit more. Because there's nothing in nature as black. It's always tones of purples and greys and blue greys and okay, so I'm just going to see that's a strong purple still. You can see it there. It's a lovely deep dark purple. And I'm going to take that onto his face because I've got to add the colour around his face. Like that. And around onto his beak. Like that. I've got to change the shape of his beak a bit, but I can still do that while I adjust like that. Come down the bottom of his beak, anywhere I see dark. There we go. Alright. And I can see some real violety, beautiful violety colour. So I've got a violet here. Where is it? I do have a violet. Is it in my Daniel Smith colours maybe? Hang on. I know I have a violet. Where is it? Maybe it's... Hang on just a second. Where's my violet gone? I don't know where my other palette's gone. That's fine. I'll just use this cobalt violet here. And you can just see that that's this cobalt violet just here. Whoops, that way, that way, that way. There you go. Cobalt violet just there. And I'm going to add that because I can see a little bit of that violet. I'm going to add a little bit of blue to it, the purple to it, just to darken it up a fraction, make it a little bit more of a pinky violet. a little bit more of a pinky violet. I'm going to take that into the top of his back because he's got softer violet feathers coming down here, like that. And also down onto his chest, like that. And I'm trying to leave the white of the paper as the white of the bird, and I'm going to blend that down. Alright, now he's a grey underneath, but I'm not going to worry about that just yet. I'm going to use this same purpley tone for his beak. I'm just going to dilute it. Now the tip of his beak is it's reflecting light, so I'll leave a little bit of white paper for the tip of his beak. And anything I can go over with pen as well, which I might even do, you know. I can always go over with a little bit with pen if I want to. Alright. And I'm going to add a little bit of indigo again. Just a bit of indigo into my, there we go, into my purple here. Whoops. Always push it the wrong way. Okay, so I've added a bit of indigo, so I'm going to take that into the bottom of the beak at the darkest and start to define that. Bird heart. Oh, thank you. Thank you. You're very kind. Beagle, you're very kind. Okay, come here. I'm going to mark in the pupil a little bit more. I'm going to come around the outside of his eye. And really darken up there. Okay, so now I can start getting these shadowy colours sort of onto his chest and around here. So I'm going to make a grey, which is brown and blue. So I use ultramarine and burnt umber. So I grab my ultramarine on my palette. So ultramarine and burnt umber to make a grey. And that makes a bluish grey. Hang on, bring it closer. That makes this bluish grey. Ultramarine and burnt umber. And very diluted, it will be, I might need to add a little bit more brown to that because you can see his belly's got a little bit more brown on it. Okay, so in here, anywhere I see these shadows, I'm going to use this grey, browny grey. Need a bit more burnt umber in there. Needs to be a bit brownier, like that. Take that all around his chest, anywhere that's darker and in shadow, like that. I can drag that around just carefully. Take that around, like that. I can have a little bit of brown showing here and there. I can wet my brush and also drag that. I'm going to make this a bit darker down here. You can see he's darker on the underside of his chest. A bit dirtier looking, like that. And then I take that right around the bottom and under his feathers, under his tail. It's that same colour. And I can also use blues for the shadows, which I do a lot. Oops. See, I've got a bit of dust on my brush. I'm using Archer's hot press paper. Okay, so now his legs are a purpley grey, so I'm actually going to use the purple that I've got onto his legs as well. And I'll leave little lines for the creases and the texture that he's got on his little legs, like that. Come down onto his toes. Same on this leg, leaving little snippets. I can also go over, like with pen, I can and will go over this with pen to detail some more. I'm going to add a bit of this grey onto his face, into the fine detail, the fine feathers coming down on his face, because he's got, I can add some brush texture. And I've got a Payne's grey, which is a purpley grey, which is a really lovely colour to use. So I can use the Payne's grey to help me a little bit too. So it's a very blue grey. So I'll show you that. That's that one. It's a very blue grey. So that's a great colour as a replacement for dark. Your Payne's grey. And I'm going to use that in the darkest dark areas. I've got to redo his pupil. Go around the edges of his darkest dark areas and create some feathery texture like that. And take that feathery texture just using the tip of the brush. I've used one brush for this whole painting and it's a size 4. Silver Black Velvet, they're my favourite brush because they hold a point. You can use the point, you can use the side, you can use any part of it to create a painting. You can use the one brush, and this is a small-ish painting. It's a, you know, if you see the size of my hand compared to the bird, it's quite a small painting. So you can get away with one brush for the whole piece. You don't need a whole collection of different brushes. I use 3 brushes. I use a 2, 4 and an 8 are the 3 size brushes that I use. So I'm just going to add, starting to add the tone now, just varying so it's not just one flat colour. So I'll just dull this white a little bit with a little bit of, I've got a little bit of wet on my brush. I'm going to go back over this blue on the top of his head with some brush strokes using the tip of my brush just to create a little bit of feather texture around the top of his head like that. And I am also going to take that, it's almost pure pigment, onto these feathers and draw in the lines. It's like dry brushing now pretty much. I've got quite a dry brush on dry paper. Okay, let's have a look. So I'm going to take this stronger blue down the bottom in downward strokes on the tail feathers. And I'm going to rest from the bird from a fraction and I'm going to get onto this wood. So for the wood, I'm going to literally clean my brush, wet the paper, wet anywhere that the paint's going to go, like that. And I'm going to first go in with yellow ochre. So I'm going to grab my yellow ochre. Where are you, yellow ochre? Grab my yellow ochre and I'm going to drop that in downward strokes. And I'll go over the top of that with greys and browns. But for now, I'm just going to add that yellow ochre. And it's not the same colour as the reference picture, but it's the base layer. Alright, so I've done that one. You can see I'm leaving the lightest part white paper. So anywhere that I can see the brightest whites, I'm leaving the white of the paper. So now same, clean my brush, wet that whole piece of wood there, go back into my yellow ochre, drop it in, anywhere that there's going to be that wood tone, and drag it down like that. Leaving little gaps because there's highlights and all kinds of fun stuff. And then same here, wet the paper, make sure it's all wet except for where the light's going to be, and down. So it's just yellow, pure yellow ochre. And blend it out a bit more. So just run my brush over the top. Right. Okay, so now I'm going to mix up a grey. So I'm going to use my burnt umber. I've got to clean one of my palettes off. Burnt umber. And ultramarine blue. Makes that same grey that I used for the shadow on the bird, browny grey. And I'm going to drop that in onto the wood. And I'm going to take it down in the wood texture pattern. The wood's not the focus of the piece, the bird is, but I'm just going to get in with the rough, just suggesting the textures. So this is blue and brown, makes this colour. Thank you, Crubby. Thank you, doll. Okay, so take that down and around and all the way down to that side. Like that. I can go, I'm going to just pick up the bottom of that. Had a bit too much moisture on the page. So take that all the way down there. Just running it down in wood pattern. Right. So just suggesting the wood. Same on this one. The one he's sitting on. Run that grey all the way round that I've made. Over the top of that gold ochre, yellow ochre, because it shines through. I can also add some pure burnt umber. There's browns and blues and all sorts of colours in grey. Okay, I've got to mix some more of that up. Burnt umber, cobalt blue, or ultramarine blue it is. Burnt umber and ultramarine. Okay. Come down. See, the paper's dried now, so it's not flowing, but that's fine. I can just go a bit stronger detail. Wet my brush and then drag it down a little bit with a wet brush like that. I'm going to go back now with less water and get some stronger lines just directly under this little bird's feet. It's not, the picture's not about the wood, but I'm trying to get so at least it looks like wood with a bit of luck. Okay, that yellow ochre does look very yellow, which is fine. I can always just go back and touch it with my cloth and sort of just distress it a little bit, knock it back a little bit so it's not quite so strong. Alright, now I'm going to pop in some wood detail going over the top. So just following the lines and the directions. I've just got to let the bird dry. So come down here like that. All the way down. Okay. And I can use some purples in the shadows on that as well. Now this is nearly all dark, so I need to darken this as well. Like that. And I can actually use this burnt umbery browny grey. It's darker down this side, so I can take that darker down there. So I just wet my brush, burnt umber, ultramarine blue. To make that grey, burnt umber, get a bit more ultramarine blue. To use the side of my brush now to drag those colours like that. So you can use the different parts of the brush to create different sort of textures. Just come up there and you can see the blue in the paint. So I'm going to bejaggedy the lines. So you can see the texture of the wood, leaving the white as the white of the paper. Same on this one. Bird's sitting on is darker this side, so I'm going to use the side of my brush and just drag that down like that. It's very dark down there. Like that. You've got to keep, I never mix enough. I always got to keep remixing and I get roughly the same colour. I've got so used to it now that I can get pretty much the colour that I want. I've got to darken up this side. So take my brush, the side of my brush, and drag it down. Alright, that's fine. Then the one that's off here is almost completely dark. So I'll just literally just rough that in there like that. Just darken up that. Okay, let's have a look. I mean, it looks like wood. It looks like he's sitting on a picket fence. I'm happy enough with that. It doesn't have to be too fussy. It's a watercolour and pen. I can add pen detail later if I want to. I could go over all this and add wood texture and be really fussy about it, but I don't need to. So I'm not going to. Righto, let's have a look. So I'm going to add some blues to this shadow. And I'm going to do that with cobalt blue. Bit of cobalt blue, just a little touch. And I'm going to come down into this, under here, and add a little bit of that blue, cobalt blue, into his shadows. Just like that. Just to help stop those looking so grey and bland. And he's got shadow under his tail, so I'll use the cobalt blue in the shadow under his tail, like that. Just like that. And these legs. So this leg, I might even, because it's almost completely in shadow, I'm going to use the same, I'm going to use that purple tone that I did use, and I'm going to add some indigo. Get a bit of pure indigo actually, a bit of pure indigo. Where's my indigo? Come on. Indigo doesn't want to lift off the palette. There we go. And I'm going to really darken up that shadow. So that's just indigo blue for the shadow on that back leg. It's off in the distance. And the top half of his leg is in shadow. So I might do it solid. I'm just going to do little marks like that. His talons or claws or whatever you choose to call them are dark. So I'll just use the indigo for that as well. The underside of his leg is dark, so I'm going to use the indigo for that, not solid lines, but just like that. Now between his tail and under his butt, he's got very dark, where his feathers join, so I'll use the indigo for that. And I can wet my brush and carefully drag that up. You can see I might even use that down underneath here. That same colour, go down to the fence he's sitting on, like that, just to darken up that underneath of his tail. He's got a shadow here on the front of this leg. Now I'm starting to look for all the little shadow areas. So I can pop that and I'm using the same colour, just the one, or the indigo and doxazine purple. That's what I'm using for the shadows. So darken up there. I can darken up here a bit more. That I'm going to put more indigo on that feather there. I want that feather to be quite dark. Like that. Whoops. I've got a bit of the side of the brush there, so I'll darken that up. And I've got to darken a few more feathery strokes around here, just to rough that up a little bit. He doesn't have any darker ones there, so I'm going to grab my indigo and I'm going to go back over now these darkest darks on his wings. I'm going back in with indigo to really strengthen those darks. And I haven't got them in exactly the same spot, it's a freehand drawing, so you can use a little bit of your imagination to, if you want to move things, you can. So my feathers aren't exactly the same as the ones in the photo reference, but they're close. They're pretty close, but they're not exactly the same, because I like to make it a little bit my own. Alright, I'm quite happy with that. And now I'm going to actually also add this dark blue to the shadow bits under his feet, because he's got shadow tone there, and I can use this indigo to create more wood texture in the darkest dark areas. It's a gorgeous dark. It is a gorgeous dark. I'll use the side of my brush there to make that more solid there, like that. There we go. I'm not going to do the background behind him, or am I? Am I going to do a background behind him? I can. I probably should have done that first, but anyway, you learn. It doesn't matter. I'm going to darken up here. Grab that indigo again. Or I don't need to. I don't think I need to. Okay, come down here. I'll just add a few little strokes of texture in there. He does have a beautiful green background, doesn't he? I do need to do that, don't I? I will. I will do that beautiful green background, and I'm just going to go straight in with olive, because we love olive green. And it looks like it's an olive green background. So what I'm going to do Because I'm literally making a big puddle of olive green on my palette. Huge puddle of olive green. And I'm going to clean my brush thoroughly. And I'm going to wet the paper around the bird, so that when I drop the green in, it'll just flow around. So I'm just going to wet all around, not going over the bird at all. I'm just going to wet all up to the edges. If I get too much water like that, I just take the moisture out of my brush and pick it up with the brush, and it'll pick up in the brush like a mop. So I go close to the bird but not quite touch him. I can drag the paint closer in a minute. Okay, so I'm just wetting the whole background. Wetting the whole background, and then I'll drop the green in. You'll see what the green, it's magical stuff. This is why I love watercolour, because you can do fun things like this and create really easy, simple but effective backgrounds. So that's the background in. I've already prepared my pool of green. Now I'm going to drop that in and let it flow just like that, and it'll go wherever I've put the water. That green will go. It won't go anywhere that I haven't. So if I've stayed away from the edge of the bird, it won't go onto the bird. It'll just go everywhere around it. Get some more of that green on my palette. Run it round carefully, getting close to the bird but not quite touching it. Come down and around. It's not flowing very fast. It's quite warm here, so the paint's dry. The water's drying almost as quickly as it hits the paper. Yay Australia. Yay hot climate. We're coming to the end of summer, so that's exciting. I like the colder months. Much prefer the colder months to the summer months. Alright, come down here. Now, I've got to quickly get around this before this dries and drag all of this close to the bird. There we go. Get that green down the paper and close to the bird but not onto it. Like that. Drag that in. I'm just using the paint that's already on the paper, because if you go adding extra water to this, it will go all weird and honeycomb and do all kinds of weird stuff. So you're better off to get it on as quickly as you can and then not fiddle with it. Just let it dry, and if you have to add a layer at the top, over the top, you can. So now I'm just going to fill in the bits that I've missed. And I didn't wet the paper first down here, but that's absolutely fine. While that's still wet in a minute, I might even add another layer. So I'm just filling in the bits that I hadn't filled in. There we go. Come down here. Right, so I'm going to go back in while that's still damp. So that's damp. I don't want my paint to be wetter. I don't want it sort of more diluted. It needs to be slightly thicker to go over the top, because you can see that is darker, the background's darker and mottled to the sides. So I'm going to take that around there, like that, and just anywhere that I want to be a bit darker, I go in with slightly stronger pigment, slightly less water, because I don't want it to be more watery than the background is already, because it'll do weird stuff. And then take that down and around, and the white of the bird is the white of the paper. I haven't used any white pigment whatsoever. You can if you make a mistake and you lose your whites, you can always use gouache or acrylic or a white pen or anything like that. You can do that. So I have done that in the past. If I've made a mistake and I've got lights where I've lost my lights, I will use them, but today I've tried to keep it the white of the paper. So I'm just going to clean my brush, take off the excess moisture and soften these edges. Drag them out a little bit, because it's sort of shrubs in the background and it's all mottled. I don't want it a solid green background, heavy dark all over, because as you can see in the photograph, it's not dark all over. It's got lighter greens and darker greens. So now I'm just going to take those edges while the paper's still damp, and this is Archer's hot press, so it's smooth watercolour paper, because it's my favourite. And he's dark right down here, so I can get some more olive. So I'm just using olive, same, just one colour. I'm not adding other colours to it. It's just olive green. And just different consistencies. So less water, more water. More water makes it paler. Less water makes it stronger. I could add a little bit of indigo to it if I wanted to, which I might actually do. I might actually add a little bit of indigo to my green, just for these darkest areas, like there. Just like that, because he's very dark around up here. Just like that. Hello, David. Thank you, and welcome. It's very dark down there. Very dark. There's a big dark patch up there. So I'll just blend that in, clean my brush, and drag that around a little bit. I'm not happy with that line there, so I'm going to wet my brush, get the excess moisture off, and just drag that around there a little bit. And that helps to make the birds stand out a bit more too. And because this is all bushes in the background, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'll just, there we go, take that around. I've got to soften this up a bit. So damp my brush, and just, because the paper's still a little bit damp, I can move it around, move the colour around a little. Whoops, I've got a bit of strong pigment there. I want that to go up though, so I'll just drag that up like that. Alright, I think I'm going to have to let that dry, but I think he's not far from done. I've just got to change it just to get the edge of his beak a little bit. I've tried to leave that very tip of his beak the highlight as the white of the paper. So now I'll just let that dry. I'm going to go back in with a touch more indigo into his pupil, a touch more indigo into the front of his beak, and just under here. So now I'm just doing the darkest darks. Touch more indigo there. He's got indigo there. Alright, and I reckon I've got to pop a little bit under his beak, being careful not to touch the background, because if I touch the background while it's still damp, that will flow out and it will draw that paint into the background, which I don't want. So I reckon that is just about it. So I'm going to sign it. I'm going to sign it down here in the bottom corner with a bit of grey, a bit of Payne's grey, just down here. Blend it into the woodwork, like that. There we go. Put the year 22, and we are done. So thank you for hanging out, guys. Or you can see how I said the watercolour does that weird thing. So while that's still drying, so I don't get a hard line, clean my brush, take all the moisture out of it, and just, actually I'm going to have to add a bit more green just to try and tidy up that edge. But I mean, that's watercolour. Watercolour does that. It does that. So we might just have to leave that and call that a happy accident, and that one there, because that's because I had too much water. But I can go over that with another layer of green if I want to, but I might just leave it because it's fine. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, everyone. David, Crubby, Anjali, anyone who's been here, thank you for hanging out. And those of you who've popped in and out and not said anything, thank you for popping in and out. And have an awesome day, and I will see you all for the next video. I hope you enjoy this. I'll catch you next time. Take care, everyone.